Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the League of Europe. We are here for round number 6 around the Yas Marina circuit at Singapore. My name is Jacob, of course, taking you guys through this as always. And joined alongside me once again, he's finally back. It is commentated. Aiden, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Unlike your voice, by the sounds of things, so that's going to be a we've picked a great track for you to have a bad throat. But
Yeah.
happy to be back after a couple of weeks away. Looking forward to seeing what these Division Two drivers are going to be able to pull off tonight at the Marina Bay circuit. And yeah, it's going to be a really difficult challenge for a lot of these drivers. It's a lot different. Well, I'd say it's a lot different. We've had Miami, but it's quite a difficult track, this one, as we've seen from other divisions so far. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what these drivers can do tonight.
Certainly am, and I did say Yas Marina. I meant the Marina Bay circuit, not Yas Marina. That's all the way at the end of the season, so apologies for that one. But yeah, so the Marina Bay circuit around Singapore. I'm quite intrigued on this one. A lot of people, when it even comes to Division Two, when they ask about memorable races from the League of Europe past, a lot of these for Division Two always seem to creep up as Singapore. So I'm hoping we're going to get a good showing for that tonight. I beg it does not rain. As I said, I'm not in the best state at the moment, so as I said, I'm just praying that it doesn't. But in case you guys did miss it last week, I will show you the standings right now as they will pop up on your screen. As to who won at Monza last week, it was of course Mr. Nathan GR63, a very dominant win in Monza, his first win of the season as well. Dari finishing in second and Creco rounding out that podium as well. Ben JS ended up finishing fourth after the stewards results from the back of the grid. Very, very impressive performance from him. Larkin finished fifth. More Games finished sixth. Slash was seventh. Killer after a penalty ended up dropping down into eighth position. Nolan in ninth, and now Scream took the 10th position as well. And of course, you can see the standings on your right hand side. Creco then, because of Luke missing out last week, Creco goes to the championship lead once again by 9 points up ahead of Luke in 76 points. Killer 2 points behind Luke as well. So he's joined the fray of this championship battle. So it's the top three all battling for this championship already. And then about 22 points behind is Dari. Nathan 4 points behind him in fifth. Larkin with 41 points, tied with Slash, interestingly enough, for sixth and seventh. Rick and Ben JS tied for eighth and ninth with 40 points, and then a massive point deficit of 23 points behind Rick is DTR Brent in 10th in the standings, which is quite interesting to see, considering I haven't really seen Brent do too much in this season so far. So yeah, again, it's only round number 6 of 17. It's all still to play for. A lot of things can still go down within this season, and we're just about to load into qualifying now as well, Aiden.
Yeah, just about to load in, and like you say, it's even with the 2 weeks I've had off, it's still the three main protagonists that we had before that are kind of leading the way, with the likes of Creco, Luke, and Killer at the very front of the field. And I think to add on to your point with Brent down there in 10th position at the moment, I think probably genuinely the reason he's only in that 10th position at the moment while he hasn't really shone is because for the majority of the races he has finished them in the points. He has been there or thereabouts, whereas a lot of people behind him in the standings, I think most notably you've got to say is Nolan, who have had the pace but not got the results. So I think maybe Brent maybe not having the pace, but is at least being able to finish the races at the moment, which is why he is currently up in that 10th position. But unless he really starts to pick the pace up, I doubt he's going to be able to hold on to that for much longer, because you've got the likes of RJ, you've got Nolan, you've got Tope outside of the top 10 at the moment, who you would expect to be further up. Evans as well, another one that you would expect to be higher up. Rex as well. So yeah, it's going to be difficult for Brent to hold on to that 10th unless he really picks up the pace.
Yeah, no, certainly will, and I expect, as I said, a few of them as the season goes along, just to be improving on a constant basis. But those top three at the moment, I think, are the ones that are looking clear favourites for this championship. There could still be someone that creeps up, but I think from what we've seen early on in the season, I think it's pretty much already confirmed that those top three are going to be our championship protagonists for this season, and I'm quite looking forward to it. There's a different dynamics. Luke coming up from Division 3 last season, Killer coming down from Division 1 last season as well, and then Creco, of course, he was usually mid to top pack end of Division 2 as well. So, yeah, I'm quite intrigued to see who ends up coming out on top with all of those. But yeah, as I said, we're now up into qualifying, and there is already a car that is out on the grid. That is a Haas, and that is Mr. IR Team Rex, the American, being the first one out on the track around the Marina Bay circuit. In case you guys aren't familiar with Singapore, It's quite a historic track. Was the first night race. It was one of the only night races on the calendar. Unfortunately, now though, a lot of people or a lot of countries have now tried to get themselves onto a night race, and I think there's now about 3 or 4 that are in total on the F1 calendar. So, unfortunately, for Singapore, it loses that little bit of extra touch with that. Although, again, Singapore has always been the notorious one for being known as the night race. So, yeah, I'm as I said, I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to go down for this evening. If there's going to be any surprises, because Singapore is a very, very tight circuit.
It's very tight. Yeah, it's one of those tracks that has a lot of character and always provides good racing in real life. But on paper, it doesn't sound like a very good track, does it? I mean, it's 23 corners. A lot of them are 90-degree left, and 90-degree right-hand corners. On the face of it, it doesn't have a lot of elevation change. It doesn't look that much of a track with character, but they've added external elements that have added that character without it feeling artificial, a lot like some of the night races we have seen join the calendar and that will be joining the calendar in the next couple of years. So obviously you've got things like Singapore obviously itself is an incredibly hot country. This is always the longest race of the season. This race always takes place as well during the monsoon season for Singapore as well, so it's a very high chance you can have rain, although we've only had one wet race in Singapore history. And yeah, curbs and things like that, walls are very close, and it is a really difficult track, as Rex has just proved that, because he was just about to start a lap with it going through 2023 and he spun the car at the very start of the lap. So Rex, right on cue. Thank you very much to the American there for kind of proving my point that while this track doesn't have a lot of character on the face of it, it is a really, really difficult track, and it is a fan favourite with a lot of drivers.
Yeah, no, it certainly is one of my personal favourites as well. I always enjoy, whenever it comes to Singapore, I do enjoy driving it. Unfortunately, wasn't able to tonight, but yeah, as I said, whenever this does come up in the calendar, I always do look forward to it. I think it's normally a memorable race. Whichever division you're racing in, it usually seems to be a memorable race. So I'm intrigued on, as I said, if Division 2 is going to perform that standard as they have been throughout the past few seasons. Riding on board with CPI Bunty in the Aston Martin, he will be our first one to complete a lap around the Marina Bay circuit. Of course, Rex will be the first one, however, he has turned off his ERS, so a proper lap will be from Mr. CPI Bunty. Of course, moving to no assist as of recent, and I've got to admit, considering that he has moved to no assist as of recent, he's doing relatively better than what I would have been expecting. I mean, him and Timon, I think, are the only two that moved to no assists. And at the moment, I think Bunty is beating him in the standings. So, yeah, I suppose you've got to give credit where credit is due for Bunty. He's doing pretty well considering he's moved over to no assists.
Yeah, I think he's doing better than even he expected, I would say, at this point in the season, of course. Obviously, at the moment at least, CPI Bunty and QRT Thurman are the only two full-time drivers that don't have any points on the board. But you've got to say, out of the two of them, Bunty's always looked like the one that is closer to being able to reach that target than Thurman. Thurman's not finished a race yet this season that he's started, whereas Bunty's has at least finished 2 of the races, bar both of them being outside of the points. But yeah, Bunty, I think, has started off the season quite poorly. I think his very last evaluation race, he really, really struggled, but he's ramped up in pace very, very quickly. So it'd be nice to see what Bunty can do. This is a proper test of what he's able to do tonight with no assist, and the 37.7 is the first time on the board, but you would expect pole to be probably, I would say, in the 35s. I think we could see a 35 tonight, a high 35, maybe a mid 35. I think we're not going to see many drivers do it, though. It is one of those tracks that is a pretty specialist track, so we're not going to see lots of people being able to do those crazy lap times. As interestingly is Felipe did hold the top spot for a very short time, but when he did cross the line, he actually had managed to run out of ERS before the final corner. So that's something we really haven't seen in the past couple of games, I would say, with ERS running out at the end of a qualifying lap. So a couple of drivers maybe might be struggling with that tonight. That might be a thing that these drivers have to look out for, as yet again, it is Creco at the top after some of the early provisional runs. I'm just seeing who is closest to the end of a lap. It is going to be, I believe, Larkin and Killer will be the next that comes to the line. Killer then around the final corner. I don't think on the face of it this is going to put him quite at the top of the time sheets. No, not quite. Only third for the time being. And Larkin, his teammates, just coming through the final corner now, crosses the line and is only 8th, backed off, I think, a little bit towards the end, as Miami's managed to get a grid penalty in that Ferrari, unfortunately. So his evening has already got off to a terrible start.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what had occurred there. I'm not going to lie. I saw there was yellow flags over towards the bridge section, so I don't know whether Bunty just didn't see him or if Miami tried to come back on track and he's just hit Bunty. I'm not too sure what's happened with that. But yeah, I mean, Creco again off to a blinding start, again ahead of his championship protagonist of Killer and ahead of Luke. And saying that, Darry then improves that, and then they're saying that Nathan then goes on to power 36.381 to start us off as well in the Alpine. So yeah, you've got to expect that those times will just sort of come down more and more as this session goes on. But yeah, Nathan, very good time, almost 4 tenths up ahead of the next person, of course, being Dari. So I think Nathan is now starting to find his foot in at least in Division 2, as it again proved out from the last 2 weeks, finishing in second and finishing in first. So yeah, I'd be expecting Nathan to. I think Nathan could win this tonight once again. I don't know. I suppose we'll wait and see. But yeah, Nathan's on a bit of a charge at the moment, and he's definitely looking the most on form in this division. And if I probably had to have a little bit of a pick at someone that isn't exactly the most on form in this division, or there's two people I can say. One I would probably say being Nolan, and the other one I'd probably have to say RJ. Both of those guys I think had a little bit higher expectations coming into this season, and they haven't really showed what they are actually capable of. So I'm looking to the both of those for this race as well. I know RJ he doesn't mind Singapore. I'm not too sure about Nolan, but I know RJ, Singapore can be a massive hit or miss for him. So I mean, again, they're sitting in 6th and 7th at the moment, so they must be doing something right at the moment, I guess.
Yeah, doing something right at the moment, but the problem with them sitting 6th and 7th is they're already over a second off provisional pole, so the field spread already is pretty massive in the early phases of this qualifying. Of course, we've still got 5 people yet to set a time. I think another one to add to the list of drivers who came into this season with a lot of expectation and have kind of underdelivered. You've got to say Tope is probably another one to add to that list. Had such a consistent run of form in Division 3 last season, running at the front with lights of Rukurik, of course, and Nuko 5, and battled all the way to the end of the season for the championship. Just missed out, but had such a run of form and was just constantly finishing inside the top 5. But this season, he's only picked up 8 points he's picked up 9 points in total, 8 points in the sprint race weekend at the Circuit of the Americas, and then other than that, he's only picked up a 12th place finish at Bahrain in the very first race of the season, and not scored in any of the other 3. So I think Tope for me is probably one that is, I think, probably the biggest surprise as to how far down the standings they are at the moment, especially considering that we have seen flashes of pace from Tope. In fact, from both Red Bulls already, we've seen flashes of pace. It's just not really come together. I think coming into this season, a lot of people in LOE would have said that Tope you would put more favourably than Dari, considering that the previous season's run of form that Dari has had. But Dari so far this season has been the star in that Red Bull team. So I would say that's another one as well. We've got to keep an eye on Tope, trying to build a bit more confidence in this championship and seeing if he can get a bit further to the front and start consistently scoring podiums like he was doing last season.
Yeah, no, that's definitely for sure as well. But back to disqualifying, run on board of RT Rex. He was having a massive oversteer moment, and he's done the exact same thing as what he was doing when he was starting his qualifying lap, or was about to start his qualifying lap. He has spun it out of the final corner out of turn number 23. He was all over the road as well, but 148.3. Funnily enough, is not even the last time that was actually on the board at the moment. So I suppose that's a little bit of a consolation for Mr. IRT Rex, because Tope holding that one at the moment with the 154.0. 4 people still yet to put any times on the board. Miami, Timon, Slash, and Marcio all towards the back end of the grid. Both Alfa Romeo's not putting a time on the board as of yet, but both are out at the moment, and I'm running on board with Marcio, as I believe he will be our next one to cross the line to complete a lap, so as long as he doesn't invalidate on his lap time. A few cars just getting out of the way for him now, just as he makes his way through the bridge section of the track. So around the tight hairpin, More Games has actually joined the session now, so he's made up the 20th car at least, and so we've now got a full grid for this session. Marcio apparently going purple in Sector 2, according to Codemasters. Whether that is true or not, just take that with a little bit of pinch of salt, as he's making his way around now once again through Sector 3. Let's see what the Alfa Romeo can do and see if he is able to at least break inside that top 10. At the moment, it's looking like this time could put him around where Ben JS and Vash Scream are, with that 37.8, 37.9 from the looks of things from the Alfa Romeo. But as he's making his way to around the final 2 corners now, let's have a quick look and see where he's going to do. He's done the exact same thing as Rex, unfortunately, and has spun it out of the final corner. I think this, from what it looks like, it's actually going to be catching out a lot of people for tonight, Aidan.
Yeah, it does look like it, doesn't it? This is another track where tyre overheating, we've seen it a lot, especially since the handling update we had. There's been a lot of kind of focus on tyre overheating, and you kind of have to run very low pressures because of that. And this is one of those tracks, it's just relentless corners, so you're picking up so much heat into your tyres throughout a lap that you get to the final corner where you need all that grip in your tyres, because it is almost a flat out corner and you don't have it. And of course you've got those horrible curbs on the inside as well that can spit you offline. So yeah, it's a difficult corner. That last corner, deceivingly difficult, definitely, I would say. And I think it's a majority to do with drivers just overheating their tyres at the very end of a quali run and not having the grip at the end. As across the line came, Felipe's gone P5 for the time being. Rekurik's managed to put it on the front row now, which is nice to see. Rekurik has had a bit of a, by his own standards, a bit of a lackluster season, I would say. Obviously, Division 3 champion last season. He's still not doing too badly at the moment. Joined 8th at the moment with Ben JS, but you would probably say for Rekurik standards, that's maybe a bit lower than we were expecting of him so far. Is just keeping an eye on some other people coming towards the end of laps. I think we've got a McLaren to the end of the run. That is Killer, who's gone on to the front row alongside Nathan. His teammate Larkins just coming to the end of the second sector and is currently 0.6 of a second up. So Larkins found a good amount of time in the early part of that. We'll see if he's able to sustain it for the rest, as Ben JS now goes across into 7th position. I'm just seeing who else is on a lap. Darry's down his lap, and I think Nathan had a really bad first sector on this run, but has managed to find time in the middle and is up again. So if he can nail the first sector, Nathan's still got another couple of tenths in this lap, depending on what he's able to do in this final sector as he comes around the final corner now and crosses the line, and he puts 2 tenths on his own time and does a 36.1. And with the first sector he did on that run, if he hadn't made that mistake and just matched his first sector from the first run, that would have been just about a 35.
Yeah, I think Nathan. If there's going to be anybody, that breaks into that 35, I think it's got to be Nathan. I'm expecting that to be him anyway. But yeah, I mean, as I said, a few other guys now just making their improvements. Miami finally getting a time on the board, putting it in P12 of 37.5. Yeah, I don't know how, still didn't end up improving on his time. We saw obviously Marcio coming around that final corner doing a 46.9 after having to spin out of the final corner as well. Both Aston Martins didn't make any improvements on their times. As I say that though, Bunty has just come across the line to improve on his time and jump up ahead of his teammate, interestingly enough. Yeah, Killer, Creco, Nathan, all ones that you'd be expecting. Luke did end up jumping up into 7th, but not up ahead of his teammates. So Luke, again, he definitely needs to get back to the pits ASAP to try and go out for one final run if he wants any chance of being able to still stay with Creco and Killer for this championship battle, because Singapore is usually a little bit of a harder track to overtake at. However, we have seen in the past there's been so much overtaking happening around this track, but as I said, it is still relatively difficult to do so. More games, of course, retiring in the pit lane. Just as a rule, if you join in late, you have to retire in the set, or you can't set a lap. So yeah, he does retire from the session. Timon and Slash, interestingly, Slash is still yet to put a time on the board. I can see Slash is on an outlap, only coming through sector 1 now. But I'm quite surprised at Slash that he hasn't actually put a time on the board. And I also want to say another one that's been, I suppose, relatively underwhelming within this championship so far. Again, we know the caliber of both of these Alpine drivers, and we expected these Alpines to be towards the top end of the field. Slash, I think, is only sitting 7th or 8th in the standings. As I said, I think tied with Larkin. So I'm quite surprised that Slash, again, he's sitting down in 19th at the moment. He needs to hope he can put a valid lap on board if he wants any chance of being able to at least, try and catch up with his teammate.
Yeah, he's not had the best of seasons. Right? I think we're going to say that about a lot of drivers, I think, tonight by the sounds of it. But yeah, that's kind of been the story of the season, isn't it? We've kind of got you 3 at the top and then other people that have not really performed to the best of their abilities. He's currently joint 6th at the moment with Larkin, but still, you've got a podium in the first round of the season and then hasn't really been close since. So yeah, it's kind of been a bit of an up and down season in terms of pace for Slash. Some weeks he's incredibly fast but can't get the result, and then other weeks he's able to get a result on the board, but he didn't have the pace to be able to fight for a podium in the first place. So yeah, a bit up and down at the moment as he's just starting his lap now. Hopefully this Mercedes in front is able to get out of the way, and they are, which is nice to see. The Ferrari as well. So yeah, Slash is going to get a nice clean run at this. But again, you can just see there braking for turn number 5, sorry, he just hit the brakes and then he just kind of went straight on a little bit and missed the apex. So Sash on board wise not looking too comfortable. 27 flat for the first sector is not terrible, but it's not going to be enough really to threaten people inside the top 5 at the moment. And there again, he's he doesn't seem to really know what the best line is at the moment around some of these corners. Some corners he's missing the apex by a mile, and then other times he's hitting too much of the apex and it's bouncing his car wide.
Yeah, no, he certainly is, and he just doesn't look comfortable around here from the looks of things. Don't get me wrong, he's doing a pretty decent time so far, just making his way around the hairpin now towards the end of Sector 2. What time is this going to be? If I remember right, I think it was Marcio did a 104, and 103 for Slash in the middle sector is not a bad time whatsoever. Again, I don't think this will put him anywhere near those guys in that top 5, but I think he will be around sort of where Luke and Larkin are. Like, just might even split between them at the low 37 and maybe even a high 36 end. So let's have a look. Slash, he's only got 4 more corners left to go. We'll see how he fares on with these final 4 corners. So just coming out of that bridge section now, and around the final 2 corners of turn 22 and turn number 23. Deploy used as well, so I think it is the case for all of these drivers that they are struggling. Slash, in fact, jumps up ahead of both of the AlphaTauris up into P6 for the relentless driver in the Alpine.
Yeah, P6 is not a bad time on the board, but the problem for Slash, unfortunately, is that because he wasn't able to get a time on the board in the first place, he didn't really have a delta, whereas everybody else around him now does, so they've got the opportunity to improve again. So I feel like Slash 6th at the moment is not bad, but unless we see a lot of mistakes from a lot of drivers, I do fear Slash is just going to keep falling down this field as drivers behind improve their times, and just trying to see who's going to be kind of closest to being able to set a lap time. I think it's going to be one of the Alfa Romeos by the looks of things that's furthest around a lap. That'll be Marcio, who's slightly up in the first sector on his previous best, but of course he spun at the very end of his previous best lap. So yeah, we have to keep an eye on the Alfa Romeo driver. He's got definitely decent pace in the bag. It's just whether he can complete the lap, but just missing the apex of the hairpin there a little bit, not really able to get the car turned in. And a lot of drivers at the moment really struggling to get a lap together. And yeah, a 10th and a half up there, but that's 2/10 down on what Slash was at that point in the lap. So this would only put him just behind. This could put him in that gap between Evans and Luke in 8th and 9th. But again, we've still got a lot more drivers that will be able to set better times and improve. So yeah, we'll see what Marcio can do for the final couple of corners, whether he's able to keep the car on the straight and narrow for the final corner as well. I think everybody's got to the line in time for their final run, apart from Rex, and Marcio's spun at 21 this time rather than 22, so he's gone a corner earlier instead. So yeah, Marcio's not going to get representative time on the board.
No, certainly right. So we look to Creeko now to see what he can do. Coming around the final 2 corners now, he's a 10th up in sector 2. As he makes his way around the corner, it's not up onto pole, but it is onto the front row of the grid. A 36.387. Ben JS comes across the line. A 36.938 now for the Williams driver. Rick did improve slightly as well. It didn't jump up any positions, but did make that improvement. A 36.520 just makes that a little bit harder for Felipe and Dari to beat. Slash does come in to retire from the session. Now look to that Scream, who's going to be the next one to come across the line. As a massive bit of oversteer coming through the 3rd to last corner. So yeah, I think Scream, yeah, again, just having that spin out of there as well. That's his session done. Dari only just shy of pole position off of Nathan, so I think this is looking like it's going to be Nathan's pole position unless Killer or Nolan can have something to say about that. Let's have a look. Luke comes across the line, 36.6 for him. Nolan comes across the line, jumps up ahead of his teammate. Killer is going to be one of the next ones across the line, as well as Larkin. Let's see what the 2 McLarens can do as they round the final corner and up to the line. Larkin stays in P12. Killer stays in P4. So that is Nathan's pole position, unless somehow Miami can then jump up ahead of him. Doesn't look as if he will. Nathan does come out on pole position and improves his time even more. A 36.084. I was expecting him to be in a 35s. Nathan, you've been a bit of a disappointment there. A 36.084. But yeah, I mean, it's on pole. I don't think he really cares that much. I'm sure he is very happy that he is starting on pole around Singapore.
Yeah, starting on pole, but in the end, that's a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I think after the first couple of runs, it looked like Nathan was at least a couple of tenths clear of the next potential driver, but that is a storming last lap from Dari to put it on the front row of the grid in that Red Bull from kind of relative obscurity, wasn't he? We weren't really talking about Dari. He wasn't that far up inside the top 10, but yeah, a really, really strong final lap from Dari to put himself on the front row in that Red Bull, just as we were talking about how Darius kind of flipped the table with that Red Bull pairing from last season to this season. He's proven the point again, put it on the front row, and is the only one within a 10th, well, within 3 tenths, let alone a 10th of pole position.
Yeah, no. So Nathan and Darry rounding out that front row. It looks as if it's well deserved as well. Creeko and Killer on that second row in third and fourth. Rick and Nolan on that third row in fifth and sixth. Luke in seventh, slashing eighth, rounding out that fourth row. And then the two Williams rounding out the fifth row of ninth and tenth of RJ and Ben JS. Evans and Larkin in 11th and 12th. Scream in 13th, Miami in 14th, but has a 5 grid place penalty after that collision with Bunty, so he will start in 19th. Which means that Bunty will go to 14th, Time in 15th, Rex in 16th, Marcio in 17th, Pope in 18th, and said Miami then drops down to 19th. And then more games, of course, joining in the qualifying session late. He will be starting at the very back of the grid. A full grid around Singapore is going to be a very interesting race. And again, I don't know who's going to do what off the line. I know Nathan has he does usually get good starts, so I'd be expecting Nathan to lead in towards turn one, but never say never. Darry could have a very good start.
Yeah, Darry definitely could. And I think one thing about Singapore as well is there's a real mix of strategies that you can go for around this track that can pay off. The softs are somewhat of a usable tyre around here if you want to try the soft-hard strategy. If you think you're not going to get a safety car interference, that can work. But of course, I think with it being Singapore, you're more than likely to see a safety car than not. So it's a bold strategy attempt that you could go for. So yeah, there's quite a few strategies a lot of drivers could go for. And like I said, with safety cars are very common around this circuit. And a lot of times the people that win the Singapore race are the ones that are able to react to the situation the best, not maybe with the best pre-planned strategy, but the ones that are able to adapt to the situation as quickly as they can. So we'll keep an eye on that one tonight. I think a couple of safety cars could wreak havoc on this race, and we could either see I think Singapore's going to either provide a bit of a boring race where we get no safety cars and someone dominates from the front, or we could get a lot of safety cars and it could be absolute chaos. I don't think we're going to get anything in between the middle.
Yeah, it's definitely one side or the other as to how this is going to go down. Everyone is just picked their strategies, and of course, if they need to adjust their setups or anything like that, then they of course can do that. So let's have a look and see what tyres everybody has opted to go on. I'm seeing a lot of yellow wall and I'm seeing a lot of the white wall tyres, but yeah, it looks as if no one has decided to opt for those soft compounder tyres. Top three all going for a set of mediums, so they want to try and get away as fast as possible. Killer will be the first one on the set of the hard compound of tyre. Ben JS in 10th has gone for a medium, so supposed just to go to opposite of what his teammate has done. And then the back four, interestingly enough, also going on a set of the medium compound of tyre, which again, I suppose is a bit of an interesting one, considering that Singapore isn't one that you can particularly overtake around. Well, I mean, we've seen it done that it can be, but I mean, one that's not notoriously known for overtaking. I'm quite surprised those back four have opted to go for a set of the mediums. They're going to obviously try and do what they can to get past a few of those hard runners, but it's very difficult for them to try and do it. And I think that's a little bit of a mistake from those back four. I think they're just going to be left for dust by the time it comes to those changes. For them to go on the set of the hards, and then when the hard runners go for the set of the mediums, I think they're just left for dust. I think those back four. I don't think, unless it's chaos and so many safety cars, I don't think any of them are getting any points tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, definitely. I think one thing about Singapore, like you say, it is difficult to overtake, but one thing that is easy around this track is to capitalise on a bit of a messy situation. I think we see, especially at the start of the second sector through 7 and 8, we see a lot of drivers trying to run side by side, and oftentimes more than not, it doesn't really work out when you can see drivers picking up a couple, maybe 3 spots, just waiting it out and capitalising on a bad situation. And that is where a medium compound tyre start will help you out in those situations. And of course, off the line as well, that is definitely something that could help you a little bit. I think Ben's going to be the interesting one to keep an eye out on in that 10th position. Of course, got a lot of hard runners in front to try and work his way through. If he can do that, there is quite a big tyre performance offset between the hards, the mediums, and the softs around this track because there are so many corners. So I think Ben could have a real pace advantage at the start. Whether he's able to gain the places early or whether he gets stuck in a train is going to be one of those things. And I think more than anything with the back four, apart from Miami, were all drivers that weren't able to set times in the session or representative times. So I think they've maybe gone for the medium compound tyre just for a bit of a safety blanket because they're not too confident on the hards.
Yeah, I suppose that would be a logical one as well for that. So again, it could be if there's multiple safety cars, then I suppose that could save their bacon a little bit. But everyone's just now lining their way up on towards the grid. Of course, we are just going to wait for I believe that is Marcio at the back. We'll just wait for him, of course, to line up on his grid spot, and then we can get this one straight underway. Screen being disqualified for not parking in his box properly. Creeko also just pulling up to his box now. Nathan has pointed that car straight to his left, and Darry has pointed his car straight to the right. So I think this is going to be a bit of an interesting one on this start. We've got the 5 red lights for round number 6. Lights are out and away they go, and it looks as if Nathan has gotten that start that I said he needed to get. And he has certainly done that. Killer having a very good start on those hard compounded tyre. Bit of contact between all of these guys as well, though. But it's looking like it's all relatively clean so far through turns 1, 2, and 3. Everyone just sort of making it 2x2 Noah's Ark style. Everyone has made it through relatively cleanly. Luke has to slot back in behind his teammate Slash, getting overtaken by Rick as well. But Nathan already 1.3 seconds ahead of Darry just from about 5 corners alone is absolutely ridiculous. So about a little bit further behind though, Ben JS and Luke both going side by side, coming through turn number 5. Gets the move done, does the Williams, and you said we needed to keep an eye on him. He is making that progress already, up 2 positions.
Yeah, up 2 positions already. Didn't get the best of starts, but was able to capitalise with the superior grip in the first couple of corners. We've got Marcio off at the back of the field. I think he just kind of took to the escape road at turn 7 to avoid a crash that could have been any bigger than it was, which is why it's a bit further back, but there doesn't seem to be any visible damage for the Alfa Romeo. I think everybody has got through the first lap pretty cleanly by the looks of things. But yeah, the start that Nathan has had is unreal. The gap he's got at the end of the second sector, 1.8 seconds. I think that has helped, of course, as Bunty spun at the back of the field. That has helped, of course, by the fact that Darry was kind of put off, I think, at the first corner, with Killer trying to go down his inside and Krieger trying to go around the outside. 3 into 1 doesn't really go, and that allowed Nathan to just disappear off into the distance. And yeah, look at the gap just growing and growing as he gets through the lap. It's nearly 2 seconds already. This is very Sebastian Vettel in a Red Bull-esque about a decade ago. This is very much giving that kind of energy, isn't it, with the lead he's got. And likewise as well, Darry in second is no slouch. He's almost dropped to Kriko by a second as well, as Kriko struggles to keep the car on the road at the final corner. So they're all spreading out a little bit at the start of this race. Got to keep our eye on Ben as well, just continuing on. He has gone to the back of Felipe now, as we've got a yellow flag, and that is Rex, who was spun at the final corner for the 3rd time tonight.
Yeah, again, I think it was going to be inevitable that we'd see him spin at that final corner. Bunty also had that little bit of a round as well. I think it was out of the hairpin in sector 2 as well. So unfortunately, he's now down toward the back end of the field, out of the loop with everybody else. And looking at this as well, Ben JS going to go around the outside of turn 5 on Nolan. Nolan's going to break a little bit later to try and hold that inside line. Ben does go slightly off track, but does look as if he has managed to keep it side by side. They're both still side by side. Nolan's going to get a better traction coming out of that corner. Luke is now going to try and look to pounce. I think Nolan trying to play a bit of a team game to help out his teammate here, and it's working like a treat because Luke is trying his best to try and get back past. There's 2 Alfa Romeos have come together down in 17th and 18th, and Marcio is now, well, Marcio was making up a few places, but unfortunately he's now back down in 19th. I don't know if he's picked up any sort of damage from both of those colliding, but yeah, very unfortunate for what's happened with the pair of them. And there's a virtual safety car.
Yeah, I think that's for debris. I think one of the Alfa Romeos is missing. Yeah, Thyman's missing part of his front wing, and Rex has no front wing at all. So I think it's all for debris on the track that they're trying to pick up. Actually, the Alfa Romeos, weirdly, they didn't make contact. The problem there was that they had the identical spin at the same corner just a couple of seconds after one another, and ended up in pretty much the same spot. Thyman was a bit further up the field, and of course Marcio had his moment on the first lap. So yeah, Thyman had spun, and then almost in sympathy, his teammate did the exact same thing a couple of seconds later, and they ended up in the same spot, which was kind of bizarre to watch. But yeah, Alfa Romeo is having a horrid season so far, and it continues at the moment, unfortunately, for the pair of them. The virtual safety car, not too much of a problem for these drivers. I say that, not too much of a problem. We've got 3 drivers, I think, who have sped under the VSC, and that is Tope, Bunty, and Rex at the back of the field. So that is a real disaster for all those lot, and it's a bit chaotic in the midfield as RJ, Evans, and Miami, or Scream, sorry, they're all 3 wide. Thyman's retired in the pits. Oh, and the round goes Scream off the side of Miami's car at turn number 5. Yeah, that was a bit of a messy virtual safety car restart from the mid-pack. It's kind of split the pack up quite a bit. As Ben trying to go for the move now on Felipe down the inside of 7 this time, and kind of drives into the side of the AlphaTauri. So this scrap for P7 at the moment is getting pretty dicey, as now Ben's trying to go around the outside. That's not really going to work, and Felipe holds on to the place for the time being. But if I were Felipe, I would have let this go by now, because all this has done is dropped him so far off the pack in front.
Yeah, where he's obviously trying to help out his teammate to try and get back past Ben, shall I say. It's not exactly helping him in the slightest, because then, as you say, Luke is now, well, with him being in this group, he's now already about 4 seconds off of the back of Rick, so off of the back of Slash even, sorry. So yeah, with all of this happening, I don't think it's helping out Luke, even though if Nolan thinks he's trying to help out Luke, it's not really helping him out. I think if anything, he needs Ben to get past, just needs to drag this whole train to the back of those guys on those hards, but he needs to do that kind of ASAP. The thing is, DRS will be enabled on this lap because it was only a virtual safety car. Ben at least will have the DRS on Nolan, so we'll see if he can maybe get a move done going down in towards turn 1. If not, it will be down in towards turn number 5. Nathan set the fastest lap of the race, of course, with that virtual safety car, 41.9 for the Alpine. So yeah, I'm expecting that time to just sort of be a lot quicker on the next lap. But yeah, Ben, not going to get a move done down in towards turn number 1. It's going to have to be down in towards turn 5. And we've seen that he's had 2 attempts to try and get a move done there as Tope makes his way into the pits. He's had 2 attempts down in towards turn 5, and I think we might see Ben go for this move now down in towards turn 5. DRS will now be wide open for the Williams. I'm going to run on board with him. You can see he's using that energy as well to try and go for this move. Nolan's going to go and cover that off on the inside of turn 5. Ben's going to try and go around the outside. Nolan breaks it and just sort of says, this is my corner, you cannot have it, and manages to hold on. Slash, in fact, out of turn 6, has had a spin as well. So Slash is now dropping down positions, and he's got wing damage. So Slash already out of this one as well.
Yeah, that is such a shame, because his qualifying actually in the end wasn't that bad, and he was running in that 6th position, and we said obviously at the start of qualifying that he didn't look too comfortable, but yeah, that is a real shame. From a pretty comfortable 6th position there, has now fallen down to the back of the field, as I think Marta's gone for another spin in that Alfa Romeo. So yeah, really horrible race so far for the Alfa Romeo pairing at the moment. But yeah, this is such a bizarre start to the race, because the field is so strung out and we're already on lap 4. So the top 5 have just completely gapped the rest of the field. The battle between Ben and Felipe has just allowed this top 5 to completely disappear up the road. So, and everybody else now is in this train, from Felipe in 6th all the way down to Evans in 13th. They are all in this train at the moment behind the AlphaTauri drivers. So yes, the field has really spread out, and yeah, the only driver at the moment inside the top 5 with DRS is Killer. He's the only one within range. Kriko's trying to get within range of Dari, but he's teetering on the edge and can't really do it. And in fact, Killer's the one that's now dropped out, as Kriko looks like he's trying to get back in. So yeah, it's so bizarre to see this. Usually we see the pack quite close together in the early phases, and then it spreads out when we get to the pit stop phase, but that is not the case. This field, we're only 4.5 laps in, and this looks like the end of a race, the way this field is spread out.
Yeah, 5 laps in, and like you say, I am really surprised that it's so spread out, especially in that top 5. You know, and they all did very well getting themselves into that top 5, and somehow they're all almost spread out by a second apart. As you say, Kriko, the only one that's not that's managed to keep DRS to his fellow German out in front of him, but at the same time, he's only teetering that on the edge. Killer's dropped out of that DRS, like you say. Rick's dropped out of the DRS from him. Obviously, those guys on the front 3 are on the set of mediums, but Dari has been completely dropped by Nathan, and Kriko almost being dropped by Dari. So I'm really surprised that all of this is happening. Ben still cannot seem to find a way past Nolan, by the way, and I don't know why. I think Nolan's, in fact, he just looks like he's got a lot more pace than what Ben does around this circuit, interestingly enough. Despite Ben being on a set of a medium compounder tyre, he just can't seem to find his groove around this track from the looks of things, despite having a pretty decent start to the race. As I say that though, Nolan with a massive tank slapper just before the bridge section, and now Ben's going to try and go around the outside and towards the bridge section, not where you want to be trying to overtake trying to overtake someone, and Ben has a massive tank slapper. Luke now tries to go down the inside of him out of the third to last corner, out of turn number 21. Ben's going to hold it around the outside for turn 22 and keeps that position, but they're all going to have DRS on each other now. It's just who's going to be a lot braver on the brakes in toward turn 1. Is it going to be Luke? Is it going to be Larkin? No, everyone is still just lined up in formation at the moment. Ben's got a lot of work to do though. He needs to get back a little bit closer, at least for a bit of safety, onto the back of Nolan. But that was a weird series of events that occurred there. It just looked like no one could keep that on track. Yeah,
it was very bizarre. That was a very bizarre few corners as well, final sector. Before that, what I was going to say was that I think it was Felipe was now just starting to get into a rhythm a little bit. It was matching the pace of Rikurik, and front wasn't losing any more time, and I think that battle that Felipe had with Ben had maybe put Ben's medium tyres on the back foot just that little bit, and maybe they were a bit hot. But just as I was about to think that and maybe say that, Felipe's gone and made a mistake and has dropped another 2 seconds further back, as we've got Larkin almost in the wall, and Miami's just got past RJ up into 10th. So Miami's actually worked his way through this field quite nicely, of course, with that 5-post grid penalty. Started 19th and is now inside the top 10 on those medium compound tyres. So he's managed to make his way through the pack quite nicely at the moment, and next target is the McLaren of Larkin, who's looking a little bit vulnerable at the moment to that Ferrari. So yeah, keep an eye on Miami for the latter stages. He's doing a pretty decent job. I think that mistake as well, and that messy section there has more than anybody has probably helped out Killen and Rikurik, because they're of course on the hard compound tyres to start this race, where the three in front of them are on the mediums, and they are on you would say probably the preferred strategy, and they have got, at the moment at least, no threat from behind. They are nearly 6 seconds clear now of the next hard runner, which is Felipe. So Killer and Rikurik can just focus on their own race. They don't have to worry too much about the medium runners in front, and they've got no threat from behind, so they can just manage those hards, and when it comes to the point where they need to put the medium compound tyres on, they don't need to worry about anybody undercutting them from behind.
Yeah, no, they certainly don't, and I think this is going to make this a bit more interesting towards the end of the race, because Killer and Rick, of course, are going to be on those medium tyres in comparison to those guys out in front on those medium tyres. Now they'll be on the hards. Still running on board with Ben though. He's a lot closer to Nolan now than he was before. It's just looking like Nolan is a lot quicker in a straight line in comparison to Ben, which is quite surprising to see, because these last couple of races, Ben has been running very low winged setups. And in comparison to in comparison to everybody else that's on the grid, and that's sort of shown in Monza and that's showed in Miami. So to see him struggling to catch in a straight line, it makes that interesting, as RJ now also is another victim of that. I believe that's turn number 7 for the Williams. Both Alfa Romeos have had that spin there. Now RJ, I said, is the next victim of that one. Yeah, unfortunately now dropping down to 15th out of the points for the Williams driver. A bit of an interesting one that's going on, down for 16th position. They're 3 wide going in towards turn 5, and Tope is the one that comes out on top of it. Marcio trying to fight back, going in towards turn 6, sorry. And yeah, Tope manages to hold on to that one. It's a battle for the wooden spoon, and Tope's the one that comes out on top of it.
Yeah, Tope coming on top. I think these guys at the back are just having fun waiting for the safety car to come out at this point in the race. They're just kind of battling at the back, but it is a nice little battle to see them going on for this little fight at the moment. I think, yeah, we're in a bit of a weird phase of this race as we just kind of wait for the strategies to start kicking in. I'm looking for Ben to be the one to pull the trigger with the pit stops and the medium tyres, because he has been massively held up in these early phases of this race. You think if he would have got past Felipe in the first lap of this race, you would expect him to be 4 or 5 seconds up the road by now, the pace that he has had, but just not been able to get past. And it's very much a case of Ben getting a taste of his own medicine, really, isn't it, this season? Because he's been the one at the front of a train with incredibly high straight line speed, not being able to be overtaken. And now Felipe is doing the very same to Ben that Ben's been doing to pretty much everybody else all season. So I can imagine Ben is very frustrated, and he's just stuck at the moment, not really able to make a move. And it's kind of ruining his strategy, because most people around him that are going to feature in this race are on the preferred strategy. So yeah, Ben, like I said earlier on, needed to get a lot of the moves done in the opening couple of laps of the race so that he could get himself some free air. Wasn't able to do that, was only able to gain 3, and I was just stuck behind the AlphaTauri of Felipe and going backwards. So yeah, it's not been a great start, unfortunately. By the way, Nathan is still leading this race for people that have just tuned in. He is now 4 seconds up the road, and it just looks like he's kind of managing his pace now. He doesn't look like he's pushing too hard. He's just a couple of tenths a lap faster than Dario at the moment, and is just edging that gap out ever so slightly. So at the moment, at least, barring any sort of outside assistance to this race, Nathan's kind of got this one in the bag already, and we're only 8 laps in.
Yeah, kind of. He's doing a repeat of what he did at Monza last week. You know, he just sort of soared off into the distance after, I think it was literally after DRS was activated, and then that was it. We didn't hear or see from Nathan at all until the end of the race. So I think it's going to be another one of those scenarios. I think Nathan's probably a bit tired that he's not actually getting any screen time, to be honest with you. But I'm sure he's not going to complain if he's getting the full 25 points out of it. So yeah, Nathan doing a very stellar job up front at the moment. Dari as well, doing a good job of keeping Creco out of his DRS. Of course, the hard runners are trying to do everything that they can to try and catch up to the back of the other German and the Mercedes. However, I don't think we're going to see anything anytime soon. So it really is this train that's running from 6th downwards to see what can Ben try and produce on Nolan. See if he can try and go for anything. It just doesn't look as if despite having DRS open, it just looks like Nolan's quicker in a straight line, which is very bizarre to see. And again, Ben was known for his straight line speed in Miami and in Monza, so I don't know why it's so different in Singapore, as there's been a bit of a spinner at the back. Obviously, all that battle going on between Slash, Marcio and Type. Type is the one that has unfortunately fallen out of that one, and he's now been overtaken by RJ. Has Type picked up damage? I'm going to actually just have a quick look. He hasn't, but he's coming into the pits anyway, so I think this might be our third retiree of the race, and it's only lap number 9, Aiden.
Yeah, only lap 9. We're not even a third of the way through this race, and yeah, he's into the pit lane. In fact, he hasn't retired just yet. He's going to continue on, which is nice to see, but at this point, he's almost a lap down, and it's been a horror show of a race, unfortunately, for Tote, while his teammates having a pretty solid race at the moment, up in second place. So, yeah, Tote really not having a good time with it tonight or this season, really. It's kind of a shame to see, unfortunately, kind of a bit of a fall from grace, sadly, for Tote, while his teammate is kind of steadily rising in the ranks of LOE. But yeah, Creeco's just starting to up the ante a little bit now in third position. He's back within DRS range more comfortably of the Red Bull drivers. So Creeco has been so consistent all season long and is remaining incredibly consistent. Not as fast as Nathan at the moment, you would say, in this pace, but he's one of the fastest drivers in Division 2 at the moment, and is consistently fast no matter what the track is, which is great to see for his races. Interestingly, Ben is the first one to pick up a time penalty. I wasn't expecting to see a lot of time penalties tonight. I think turn 2 and turn 7 are kind of really the only corners you would expect to see drivers picking up warnings. So yeah, interesting that we're only not even a third of the way through and Ben's already picked up a penalty. I think that's part and accustomed to the fact that he's been racing so hard with Felipe that he's maybe just not been concentrating on that.
Yeah, that as well, and I think, I suppose a couple of seasons ago, you'd be expecting Ben to be the first one to pick up a penalty, but as of recent, he's kind of toned it down a little bit. Has managed to keep it quite penalty free as of recent, but yeah, unfortunately, being the first driver to pick up a penalty, that's now, with him being in this train stuck behind Nolan, it's going to drop him a good few places by the end of this race if he can't seem to get past Nolan as well. Not only that, he's then going to be on the back foot, being on the hard compound tyre, whereas all those medium runners that he's around will be on a set of the medium compound tyres. So yeah, I think Ben, that 3-second time penalty, I think that's going to hinder him a lot more than what we may expect to come towards the end of this race. I think he might end up dropping. There's a chance, a slim chance, but there is a chance that he could end up dropping out of the points from that if he isn't careful.
Yeah, like you say, there is definitely a possible opportunity of him dropping out of the points, because even though they're a bit further behind, Bunty and Scream aren't that far off, and they're just outside of the points. They obviously had their moments earlier on in this race, but they're not that far off and on the preferred strategy. So yeah, this could be a bit of a bad moment for Ben, as Ben now comes into the pit lane, is the first driver to make a genuine strategy pit stop in this race at the end of lap 10. So 21 laps that will be on the hard compound tyres for Ben to finish off this race, which should be well within the hard compound tyres range to do. Whether they've got any pace at the end of the race compared to the mediums is another story, but Ben will finally at least have some clean air to push into. So now we'll see kind of what the undercut power is around this track between the medium and the hard strategies. How much of a gap can Ben build over the AlphaTauris in these phases before they pit for the medium compound tyres? Can he build anything substantial enough to be able to hold on to some places? But you can already see straight out of the pit lane, those hards are not up to temperature, and it's going to take a while for them to get up to temperature.
Yeah, no, they certainly will. And the thing that I'm quite intrigued about as well, there you go, Nolan letting Luke pass. He knows he had to just let him pass as soon as Ben made that pit stop. Luke now just needs to try and soar off into the distance as far as he can. But the thing that I'm quite intrigued about is Slash is our third retiree. Nathan, our race leader, picks up a 3-second time penalty. I don't think at the moment it's going to matter that much. Considering he's almost about 6 seconds up ahead of Darry. He's just got to hope there's no safety car or anything like that, or late safety car, shall I say. Otherwise, that completely ruins his progress, and that 3-second time penalty is basically just lost in the race. So, yeah, like I said, fingers crossed for him. But, yeah, I'm intrigued on how Miami and more games are going to do, because they've started at the very back of the grid. They're 9th and 10th at the moment, so they've made very good progress, I've got to say. I'll put my hands up. As I said, I didn't think that they'd end up getting in points today, but there's a chance now with Ben's penalty that they, at least one of them, could pick up a set of points. Are we going to see any of them make their way into the pits? Both of them do come into the pits this lap, so this is going to be a bit of an interesting one. Where are they going to come out in relation to Ben? Of course, being stuck in that train, it's going to slow them down. However, Ben's still trying to warm up his tyres. So is there going to be an advantage with them? Or is Ben going to be jumped by the both of them? However, obviously with there being cold tyres, I think they could get overtaken straight away. Let's have a look. Miami has just come out of the pit lane. Ben is just passing the pit lane as we speak. I think Ben has actually come out ahead of him by quite a significant amount. I thought it was going to be a lot shorter of a gap, but yeah, no, Ben, very, very nicely done on the undercut. And I wonder if that's going to send a little bit of a signal for the other drivers if they want to try and make a bit of an undercut, especially those top three on those medium tyres. Are we going to see any of those top three make an early pit stop to try and undercut the rest of those other guys?
You've got to look to Creco, really, haven't you? He's the only one that you would say that could really make a difference with that kind of thing. But yeah, Ben has done a really good outlap there, getting those tyres up to temperature, and he's now nearly 3 seconds ahead of Miami. So that's good for him, but of course he's still got that 3-second time penalty looming over his head. So at the moment, it's basically nothing between him and Miami. And yeah, for Miami in more games, they avoided the carnage early on in the race. Of course, Miami with the grid penalty, more games not able to set a time in qualifying at all because he joined late. And like you say, they've just kind of snuck their way through and have been chugging along nicely on their little strategy at the moment. And yeah, they're just almost kind of working together to get themselves a bit further up the field. They're doing a pretty solid job, you've got to say. And I think it's good to see from the pair of them because the pair of them really haven't had the best seasons by their standards either. There's more games, 14th only with 12 points as it stands, of course. And Miami, I don't even know how many points Miami has, but I don't think he has too many. So yeah, it's nice to see. Well, actually, in fact, Miami's only raced once in his DNF, so Miami has no points to his name. So it's nice to see Miami in more games having a better race than we've seen from them so far this season.
Yeah, no, that's first for me for certain. But yeah, so they've come out about in total now that they've got their tyres warmed up. It's about 3.5 seconds now behind Ben JS. The only thing that's good for them and hopefully come towards the end of the race is that, of course, Ben has that time penalty. Sorry. So if there is a safety car, relay safety car that comes out, then at least they'll know they'll be able to jump up ahead of the Williams. But the thing that I'm quite looking at as well is that gap that's coming down between Ben and from Scream. I think the gap between them when he came out of the pits was about 16 seconds. It's now dropped down to 14.6. So Ben is on an absolute charge to try and catch up to the Mercedes of that Scream. And we'll see it again maybe within the next couple of laps if he's able to bring that gap down quite significantly, as still riding on board with Larkin. Evans just having a bit of an oversteer moment out of that hairpin, so we haven't exactly seen too much of the Alfa Romeos. They're just sort of running their own race at the moment, both in 9th and 10th position respectively. Of course, the guys behind them are the ones that have made pit stops, so at this moment I'd want to say that they're around where Miami and more games are in 13th and 14th, but I don't know. I suppose we'll see how that goes. Creco is the first one out of the top three into the pits, like you said, Aiden.
Yeah, I don't think that's a surprise. I think he's got to get the undercut on Dowry here to get ahead and try and get into that second position and see if he has any chance really of catching Nathan in any way of this race. So yeah, not a surprise to see Creco in. The only worry for Creco is where he's going to come out of the pit lane in relative to other people. I think he should come out. He will come out behind his teammate. You would imagine his teammate's not going to put up that much of a fight when he catches him, but he's got a little bit of clean air that he can push into to use these tyres and try the undercut. So yeah, smart move there from Creco to go for that one. Now, one thing interesting to note, I wonder if Nathan's maybe left it a little bit too late to pit for his hard compound tyres, or whether he's just made a mistake, but the gap was over 6 seconds just a lap and a half ago, but it's now down to 4.8. So I'm wondering whether Nathan is right at the end of his tyre window on those mediums. He now has to pit for hards. You can see it there coming through the hairpin. He was understeering horribly towards the exit of the corner. So I think Nathan is right on his last legs on those medium compound tyres. I think it's a good thing that he's built up such a lead in the early phases. Otherwise, Darry would be right all over him.
Yeah, no, he certainly has, and yeah, I think at the moment Darry is the one that is looking a little bit quicker out of these top two now. But surely with them seeing Creco make that pit stop, and if they've got the stream on, they may have heard the fact that the undercut is a bit better, or if they've got anyone engineering them or jeffing them, sorry, they would have been told that the undercut is mightily powerful. Are they going to see anyone pit? Nathan opts to stay out, and Darry is coming in, so we'll see where Creco's going to end up in relatively where Darry's going to come out. Creco is only just coming around the chicane just before the bridge section, so yeah, I think Darry might get the jump on him. However, I don't know if it's going to be by much. You got that train obviously still led by Luke and Nolan for fifth. Yeah, they're just coming past the pit lane now. Yeah, it's looking like Darry's actually got a significant jump on Creeko, interestingly enough.
Huh, how bizarre. Everything we seem to think that is going on doesn't end up being the case. I wonder whether Creeko's had a bit of a moment somewhere on that outlap as he comes through turns 1 and 2 now. Of course, Darry's going to have to warm his tyres up, but yeah, there's not really been any undercut at all there from Creeko, which is a bit bizarre to see. I think surely must have had some sort of moment on that outlap because he's actually fallen further back. So yeah, really bizarre lap there for Creeko, which is a bit of a shame. You would have expected him to be ahead, and I think if he hadn't had a bad outlap for Creeko, then you could have looked at him maybe potentially getting within penalty range of Nathan, because Nathan's pace on these medium tyres has pretty much completely fallen off at this point. He's not got a lot of grip in these tyres at all, and staying out that extra lap longer could have left him vulnerable, but with that poor outlap for the Mercedes driver of Creeko, that's not really the case anymore. So I think Nathan's been let off the hook a little bit in that situation. So yeah, Creeko resumes service right up behind the rear wing of that Red Bull, a little bit closer to Darry this time around, but crucially some sort of mistake on that outlap has cost him potentially a shot at second place.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that is the case as well. Nathan, you can see as well that time is coming down from him and Killer. Killer is starting to gain time now on Nathan, so surely Nathan comes in, and yeah, Nathan is into the pits. And still riding on board with Darry and Creeko. And again, they're only just coming through the chicane section now of, just coming through the chicane, sorry, which is around sort of where Nathan, or where Darry was when he came into the pits ahead of Creeko. So I wonder when Nathan's actually going to come out in relative to everybody else as well. I think, unfortunately for Nathan, I think he's going to be stuck at the back of this train, led by Luke.
Yeah, it does look like it, doesn't it? As he comes out of the pit lane now, he's not quite on that back of that train, but he will catch them pretty quickly, which could be a bit of a hindrance for his race. So yeah, not ideal at all. And yeah, Nathan's not really lost anything in that whole phase by staying out a bit longer than Darry and Creeko has not lost anything at all. In fact, the gap is pretty much what it was before his pit stop. So yeah, Nathan's got away with that one quite nicely. One thing to note as well, that was a bit of an adventurous lap, yellow flags wise. Miami's picked up a time penalty. More Games, unfortunately, has spun, so it's dropped 7 seconds back from Miami now. Doesn't seem to have any damage, but what was looking like a solid top 10 result potentially for the Haas driver has kind of come undone with that spin, unfortunately, for them. And another thing to note as well, ever since Felipe has let Luke through, Luke's not really done anything. In fact, the gap was 8 seconds when the AlphaTauri swapped positions. It's now 11 seconds, and Luke has not dropped his teammate from DRS. So I feel like the AlphaTauri swap potentially was a little bit unnecessary, potentially, because Felipe's holding on to the back of his teammate, and his teammate's not going anywhere. So yeah, maybe the AlphaTauri's just kind of swapped positions, not really for any reason at all.
Yeah, and I get the feeling maybe towards the end of the race, if there isn't any sort of team orders going on, then I reckon we could see Nolan go back past Luke. I think he sort of let Luke through, one, just because he's, fighting in that championship ahead of Killer, ahead of Creeko, but also I think it looked like Luke had the pace on Nolan early on, but I don't know what's going on now. I don't know if it's just the case that Nolan's just a lot more comfortable on harder and older tyres, or what, I suppose, because it seems a bit of an interesting dynamic that's going on. I'm running on board with our net race leader as Creeko has gotten past our screen, and Darry got past him as well. And Nathan goes into the back of Evans. I don't know if Nathan's picked up any sort of wing damage from that. Hopefully he hasn't. He's let Evans go back past him, but that was a bit of a shunt from Nathan. So if Nathan's picked up damage, that's completely ruined his whole race already. He's gotten past Evans now on the DRS straight down in towards turn 5, but I can't seem to see any damage on Nathan's car. But if he's got damage, then he's in for a real treat come towards the end of this race.
Yeah, he potentially could be good. I think just a little bit of a lack of patience there, unfortunately, for Nathan to try and get through this train. And yeah, could potentially be a costly mistake, but at the moment, at least, it doesn't look too bad. We'll wait and see. He doesn't seem to be losing any sort of pace. He's caught right onto the back of Larkin immediately already anyway, so I think he's fine. But yeah, he definitely pushed his luck with that one, you've got to say. That was right on the edge for Nathan there for potentially ruining his race, but he seems to have gotten away with it for the time being. But the problem now, though, this is right in the middle of a proper train of 3 drivers now, so he's going to have to try and make these moves as quickly as he can if he can get to the back of them. But in this final sector, there's not really any overtaking opportunities, so he's just, by the looks of things, going to have to sit behind Larkin until potentially for a move at turn 1.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the case. If he can get it done in turn one, then that's good for him. At least then he'll get DRS off of the back of the AlphaTauris. Excuse me, it'll be harder for Larkin to overtake him as well. So let's have a look. All coming around the second to last corner and the last corner now as well. Nathan, in fact, has gotten a very nice exit out of that out the second to last corner as well. Sorry, out of the last corner. Unfortunately, he's not able to get the move done, so Nathan is going to have to stay behind the McLaren for now. Evans, the first one on the hard compound of tyres, sorry, to make a pit stop.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think maybe that little bit of contact from Nathan on that previous lap has just kind of pushed him into doing it because he dropped back from the drivers in front. And speaking of Nathan, he is going for the move now on Larkin down the inside at turn number 7. And as you'd expect, Larkin doesn't fight it. Nathan is through and up into 5th place on the road. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. I think Evans, with that contact with Nathan, got taken off the back of the train he was fighting with. And he thought, I may as well just pit now and try and get back within that fight a little bit. So, yeah, put on the back foot and is now trying to recover from it as Nathan's next target is Felipe. And from what we've seen so far from Felipe in this race, he is not willing to give up places easy. So I think this one's probably at the 3 that in this train. This is probably going to be the most difficult for Nathan to pull off.
Yeah, no, that's for certain as well. Let's have a look and see what he can do. Of course, it's looking like Nolan's pretty quick in a straight line, but look at Nathan just pushing Nolan as well. He's going to try and go for a little bit of a switch down in towards the end of sector 2. Not going to be able to get the move done and has to stay behind the AlphaTauri for now. So all of this progress that Nathan's made up is now being hindered by Nolan. And not only that, of course, remember, we've got to remember, Nathan picked up a 3-second time penalty. Dari is now closing on these guys exponentially. So I think we're going to see Nathan, he needs to get past Nolan. That's the one person he needs to try and do. And you can just see he is pushing him through every single corner. Nolan actually does come in at the pit, so he's not going to hinder Nathan anymore. And good thing for Nathan is that he's now got a little bit of a buffer that he can play with to get back up to the back of Luke. But yeah, I think, again, that hasn't really helped him. He's still going to be at least 3 seconds up ahead of Dari, but that's now put him at a bit more of a scary territory of that 3 seconds, as opposed to being nice and comfortable with about 6 seconds up ahead of him.
Yeah, it's definitely put Nathan a bit on the edge a little bit, doesn't it, now, as he's going to go for the move down the inside of Luke at turn 7. That's a much easier move than the other two, and Nathan is back up into 3rd position. But yeah, Dari is a lot closer than he was now, so Nathan now can't afford a mistake. Dari is now properly within range if he does make a mistake. And of course, we can't forget about Killer and Recurric. They're still yet to pit off of their tyres. Nathan is only 13 seconds back on the road, but we know the medium compound tyres are faster than the hards, as we saw from the start of this race. So Killer and Recurric could fly up to the back of potentially into penalty range of Nathan later on if they're able to do that. So we've got to keep an eye on those two as well when they come into the pit lane. You would imagine in the next couple of laps or so we will see Killer and Recurric in, so they can use the most of that medium compound tyre and get as many laps in on that medium compound tyre before it dies off as they possibly can. I wouldn't be surprised if we see potentially Recurric in this lap to try and undercut Killer Blue at the same time as well. We'll wait and see what they do. Killer stays out. In fact, they both stay out for another lap, so they're going to continue on. But yeah, Nathan now free of clutches of those back markers. He is now able to roam free, and he's just now starting to rebuild the gap back up to Dari a little bit again.
I've got a bit of an interesting one. I wonder if those top two are actually going to go for a set of the softs at the end, because you said it can be doable. I wonder if they're trying to pull off a bit of a different strategy and will go for those softs at the end. Because, I mean, Killer, you can see they've both got the pace. Nathan is, of course, catching these guys stupidly quick. But at the same time, they'll be on soft tyres at the end of this race, where they'll have a massive pace advantage in comparison. I suppose at this point, now it's on that 20 or 31, I don't think there's anything for them to lose if they try and go, or try and extend these hards just a little bit more and go for a set of the softs at the end of this race. I can see one or maybe both of them doing it, and I can even see Larkin doing it down in 5th as well. So he's just been content sitting behind Luke and Nolan for the entire race, and obviously Nolan's going to get a jump on them by the time they make their pit stop, because they haven't pit as well to sort of counteract Nolan's undercuts. So I think we might be seeing a few of these hard runners actually go for a set of the softs at the end of this race.
We definitely could see it. My only worry with that is to get to the softs to the end of the race without the soft tyres themselves dropping off in pace completely. You've got to get to probably about lap 23, 24. And with the pace that Nathan's running at, and well, most of the hard runners are running at the moment, I don't think they can afford that much time loss. I don't think they'd be able to gain it all back again on that soft compound tyre. I mean, just look at those that pitted onto the medium compound tyre. Felipe pitted a lap later than Evans, and of course Evans had his scrap with Nathan. Evans is within DRS range of Felipe. That just in just one lap, that just goes to show how much of a pace advantage a fresh set of mediums had. I don't know why you wouldn't want to use the fresh set of medium compound tyres for longer and get more pace out of that. I feel like that would be the better strategy. I mean, just to prove the undercut as well, Felipe is now behind more games, and more games had a spin in this race. So, yeah, I think that just proves that the hard tyre pace now for Rukurik and Killer is so bad. I think staying out for a set of the soft compound tyres is they're just going to lose too much time. I think if they stay out until the end of lap 24, there's all the potential that Nathan could be on the back of them by the time they pit.
Yeah, it's only going to hurt them, not help them. So, yeah, I think Killer and Rick, I think they tried to play a bit of an interesting one. If they're going to go on a set of the softs, surely if they don't pit this lap, then I think it is confirmed that they'll be going on a set of the softs. And same with Luke and same with Larkin. If they don't pit this lap either, then I'm sure it's confirmed that they will be going on a set of the soft compound tyre. Bit of an interesting battle though going down for P8. Ben versus that Scream. A little bit of contact between Ben and Scream coming through turn number 6, but gets the move done. Does the Williams, of course, on much fresher hard tyres as well. And yeah, now up into P8. And as you were saying about that as well, I mean, we saw Creeko and Dari 7 laps ago. They were behind Scream. He's now dropped 10 seconds behind them. So again, I think that's just another buffer of just saying, you know, these hard tyres that these guys started on are screaming at them for them to come in. But I don't know. I think now it's too late for the mediums, but it's too early for the softs.
Yeah, it seems like it. And yeah, they're going on again. So yeah, it's definitely going to be a soft compound tyre run for the top two. But I don't think it's worth it. I mean, Nathan is 2.5 seconds a lap faster at the moment. This strategy doesn't seem worth it for the top two at this point in the race. I think. Yeah, and another way to prove as well this massive undercut and the pace that we've seen from this undercut phase of this race. We've got a yellow flag somewhere. Not sure who that is for. I think actually that's for Taupe, who was a lap down. But another indication of this massive undercut around this track is the gap between Felipe and Ben. Of course, they had such a massive fight in the early phases. Ben pitted at the end of lap 10 for a fresh set of hard compound tyres, and he's now 8.5. He's about 8 seconds up the road, even with that penalty from Felipe. That is a massive amount of time to gain in such a short space of such a short amount of laps. So I think it just proves how powerful that undercut is. I think the only saving grace here for Killer and Rukurik in their race is that Dari is now stuck behind Larkin and Luke on those slow tyres. Dari and Creeko are now stuck themselves. So Killer and Rukurik's race is to try and see if they can nab a podium spot off of Dari and Creeko. And this could definitely help them, this phase of the race where Dari is getting stuck behind Killer Blue's teammate Larkin. If you're Dari, you've got to get the move done now so that you're not under any risk later on.
Yeah, no, that's what's certain. And the same with Creeko. They both need to try and get something sorted out ASAP. The only problem, though, is that Larkin doesn't look a little bit of a slouch on these hard compounded tyres either. So, unfortunately, with the DRS as well, it's not going to help them whatsoever. I'm still just keeping an eye on those top two as well. 5.5 seconds is now the gap between Nathan and Rick, and again, I don't think those top two are going to be coming in at the moment. I think next lap, I think lap 23, as you said, lap 23, lap 24, I think we'll see Killer and Rick make their pit stop for those soft tyres to go to the end. But again, I think it's not going to help them. Luke and Larkin are also going to do the same thing, and the more that they're staying out, like you say, the more it's hurting Dari and Creeko. Dari is trying to use his ERS to try and go for the move on Larkin, not going to be able to get it done in towards turn 1. I think Dari had to think about it, but just had to back out of it. And now going down in towards turn 5, I think we may see that move go down. Larkin going a bit defensive going in towards turn 4, but yeah, again, I don't think we're going to see. Sorry. Through turn 4, going into turn 5, sorry. Larkin was going a bit defensive, but I don't think we're going to see anything. Down it was turn 6 now. Here we go. Dari going to go down the inside. Brakes a lot later than what the McLaren does with those fresher tyres. Nothing much that Larkin can do, and he's now put a car between himself and Creeko. Dari's got a much easier target. Not saying that Luke's any slouch, but because Luke doesn't have any DRS out in front of him, it's a bit of an easier target for Dari to go for this move on Luke, as there's yellow flags, and that's that scream that has gone around out of turn number 6 as well.
Yeah, he was just getting overtaken by Miami, and I think he's just spun in reaction to being overtaken at the same time. So, yeah, been a bit of a horror show of a race, unfortunately, for the Mercedes driver of Scream. It continues on. He's just got to hope for a safety car to really think about any sort of points finish in this race. I think another gap that we're going to have to keep an eye on when they come out of the pit lane is the gap between the two AlphaTauris. How much time has Felipe gained in these 5 laps where he's pitted for the mediums instead of staying out for the soft compound tyre? Do Killer and Recurrent come in? No, they go for another lap. Wow, they're going for another lap again, so they don't think the softs can get to the end from this point in the race, but they are. I mean, look at Nathan. Nathan's now only 3 seconds back. He is so much closer. And Nathan's pace on these hard compound tyres in free air has been insane. I mean, we were talking about Nathan getting held up in traffic, and he was only 5 seconds ahead of Dari. He's now 12.5 seconds up the road from the Red Bull driver, having been in clean air for the last 5 laps. So, yeah, Nathan has completely dominated this race. This is definitely a D1 worthy kind of race for Nathan. He's so far clear of the rest of the field in this race, and yeah, Dari and Krico can't really do anything about it. They're just kind of fighting for whatever is left, unfortunately, as Dari now should get a very easy run at Luke here down the straight. Yes, he does. Dari bruises on past and gets some clean air himself. So now Dari's in a little bit of clean air. Surely Killer and Recurric now have to react, because their lap times are getting tantalizingly close to the 44s.
Yeah, no, certainly do. So, yeah, Dari's now, of course, to set up in that free air. Yeah, like you say, Killer and Rick, to make this now, they need to make this pit stop this lap. There's no shadow of a doubt with that. The interesting thing as well, I was just keeping an eye on that in the background. Krico and Larkin. Krico was trying to go down the inside and it was turn 6. Larkin, I think, broke a little bit too late. Went slightly off circuit, but kept the position up ahead of Krico. So I don't know whether if Larkin has to give that position back, or if well, he's been able to keep the position anyway. So Krico's just being now left behind by Dari. I think Nathan and Dari still finish on the podium. I think that final podium spot, though, it could go to either Killer Rick or Krico at this point. I think Dari's managed to get away just in time. It's just for the rest of them. Who's going to be the one that comes out on top? Miami and Nolan both going at it for P9 as well. And Nolan manages to get the move done on the Ferrari. So now goes up into 9th position. Rick and Killer has still not hit. And Nathan's now on the back of them.
Yeah, If I'm honest, I'm completely baffled by this strategy. Rick has a massive snap coming out of turn 3. Yeah, I'm completely baffled by this strategy from Killer and Recurric. I think if they'd pitted 6 laps ago for a set of the medium compound tyres, they'd be on Dari and Krico right now if Luke and Larkin had stayed out themselves because of how much they've been held up. But instead, they're just gifting time away now by staying out this bit longer. And I don't think it's going to be worth it. I think they'll get 3 or 4 really good laps out of the softs, and then that'll be it. They'll just kind of run out of pace pretty quickly. So I don't think this is the right call. I really don't think this was a smart call from Killer and Recurric to go for the soft compound tyres. I think this call would have only worked if we're going to get a safety car in the next lap or so, in the next half a lap. But with the way this race has gone so far, that doesn't look like that is going to happen. So yeah, they're really, really losing time now. Nathan doesn't need to rush this at all, but just look at the traction he's got in comparison to the Ferrari. He's almost driving through the Ferrari down the back straight, and Recurric can't do anything about it. And now, of course, Killer and Recurric are losing even more time because they're now having to get out the way of Nathan.
Yeah, no, exactly. I watched on board with that as well. An amazing traction from Nathan coming out of that corner as well. But just look at how much he's pushing that McLaren around these corners. You've got to say, yeah, surely both of these guys have got to pit this lap. There's no shadow of a doubt in my mind that they've got to pit on this lap. Again, I'm still surprised they didn't pit on the last lap, because look how much Dari has gotten away from Luke. They're still not pitting, man. Wow. Why they're still not pitting? Surely they are waiting for a safety car. There's no other explanation other than they are waiting for a safety car to come out, so then they can at least prioritise on that strategy. Because look how much Dari's pulled away from Luke. He's 4 seconds up ahead of him, and he only overtook him, what, 2 laps ago now? So on average, almost like 2 seconds per lap that he's gaining on those other hard runners. Krico, I don't know how he's not managing to follow through with it, because he's stuck behind Luke and behind Larkin.
Yeah, I think this is the saving grace for Killer and Rikurik at the moment, is that Kriko's stuck. He can't find a way through, but just look at the grip he's got in turn 5 comparison to Larkin. Surely this is moved on the McLaren this time around, coming up towards Raffles Boulevard of turn 7. He's going to have so much more confidence on the brakes down the inside of Larkin. A little bit of contact, and Larkin goes off the road again and keeps the place again. That's the second time Larkin's done that now. I think he was a little bit forced that time around, but that's going to annoy Kriko that Larkin's just driving off the road at turn 7 and is keeping the position kept the position both times. Of course, Larkin wants to help his teammate out, Killer, and yeah, Kriko's really being hampered by this. But look at Larkin, he can barely make the Singapore Sling corner. That's how bad his tyres are. And the problem here now is Nathan gets the move done on Killer and almost puts Killer in the wall, actually, at the end of the straight. The problem now with Killer and Rikurik, I think it's out of the question. They are not catching Dari at this point in the race. Dari is now only 9 seconds back from the two of them. The problem now for Kill and Rikurik, when they pit, they are at risk, or in fact, they're more than likely going to be out behind the likes of Ben, Felipe, and potentially even Miami and Evans because of how slow they are at the moment. And that is more people they're going to have to pass if they want any shot of sitting a podium. And they're still not pitting.
Oh my God.
I don't know whether I'm shocked or if I'm getting angry at this point in the race. I am really confused. I mean, Campbell's just said something in the chat. Is there rain coming potentially at the end of the race? If there is, then that is potentially something that they could be looking into. But they're going to have to hope that if there is rain coming in the next couple of laps, they're going to have to hope that it absolutely chucks it down and they have to go to intermediate conditions. If it only spits and there's not really any difference, they are in a lot of problems here. As Rikurik now is going to try and get the move done on Killer for position on the road, can't get the move done, and as if they couldn't be losing any more time, they're now going to try and fight each other. And Killer there in defense of Rikurik, almost completely just sliding into the wall. He's got no grip under braking. This is, yeah, I think the only explanation for this is rain or a safety car. And if there is rain coming, they're going to have to hope it's coming very soon.
Has to be. I mean, your bring has actually just said, yes, there is supposed to be rain. Oh, it is raining. It is raining. So, well, if it does chuck it down as hard as it should do, or as hard as they hope that it does, then they have pulled a blinder, but I don't think it is. I think it's still going to be slick conditions. I don't think it's going to enter. I don't think it is. I think they've all messed it up. And even if Killer and Rick do pit for a set of the intermediate tyres, they're not going to win this race. Dari and Nathan, surely by their standards, they would stay out anyway, even if they pit for the inters, because they've done their mandatory stop. Rick and Killer haven't. So I would have thought they would still be staying out on tracks anyway. They're both still staying out. They're definitely going to these intermediate tyres, or are going to try and go for intermediate tyres. 2 people have already come in for them. Tope and Marcio. This is what we need to try and keep our eye out for. What times Marcio can do, as Luke has actually dropped it. Luke's actually coming into the pits. Are we seeing Luke also going on a set of inters? Because if it is, then these guys have actually not done a bad strategy whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Inters.
Gosh. Yeah, intermediate tyres for this is a gamble and a half. This is a proper gamble that they're putting themselves on. I'm keeping on board with Marcio. I think the only saving grace here for Marcio and Tope in terms of pace is that on a dry track, the intermediates aren't actually that slow. They're not a slow tyre in dry conditions. They'll just overheat that a little bit as Felipe and Ben are running side. But look at this. Ben and Felipe have now caught this Larkin train. Rico's finally got the move done on Larkin. Felipe and Ben are running side by side, and Felipe's got the move done. We've got a yellow flag. That's Marcio that's spun on those intermediate tyres. Krico is finally past Larkin and up into 5th place. Yeah, there's... I don't know what to make of this, but the problem is if it stays like this and it doesn't get wet enough for intermediate tyres, Killer and Rick's tyres are going to be so terrible in these conditions. DRS has been disabled, which suggests that it is wet enough for intermediate tyres, but I don't know. I don't think it really looks like that. Luke on the intermediate tyres, it isn't looking fast by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, the problem here for Killer and Rick is they're going to have to hope that everybody has to go for the intermediate tyres and that they have to do that. But at the moment, it's not looking like that. And look at Killer. He can barely keep the car on the road. He's got no grip. He's into the pit lane. Rikurik is into the pit lane as well. Dari's going to stay out. He's going to keep going. So we'll keep an eye on Nathan and Dari and what their pace is in these conditions. Killer and Rick's only hope here is that everybody has to go for the intermediate tyres. If they don't have to go and it stays in this kind of intermediate period where it's not really favouring the inters or the dries, then Kim and Rick have got this completely wrong.
Certainly have. Creco picks up a 3-second time penalty as well. Felipe picks up a 3-second time penalty. Ben picks up a 3-second time penalty. So all three of them, coming through turn 1, 2 and 3, all pick themselves up a penalty. I think that does suggest that it is intermediate conditions. Killer is the front runner now on these inters. Everyone is just, they are struggling immensely on these dry tyres now. And it now turns the attention to Nathan and to Dari. The thing is, they're about 35 seconds. I think it's about 35 seconds. Yeah, 36 seconds, sorry, behind Nathan, which with 2 laps to go, despite it being a wet track now, I don't think that's enough. There's yellow flags, once again, that's of Taupe at the back of the grid, having a spin out of turn number 5, but, yeah, out of turn 5, sorry, but yeah, I don't think there's anything. In fact, that's Nathan. Nathan has gone into the wall out of the exit of Sector 2, so yeah, Nathan's got wing damage as well. Oh my god, this is actually playing into it.
Yeah, what has happened? Oh, and Nathan's gone off again. He's aquaplaned off the road again at the very next corner. I don't know if he's hit the wall again, potentially. I don't know. But yeah, it's still got the damage. But that's put Dari within 7 seconds now. And is going to keep closing in these final couple of corners. Nathan's surely got to pit here, because I think they're going to have to pit. I think this is such a difficult call. Oh, my word. If Killer wins this race, honestly, this is the craziest end to a race I potentially have ever seen. Nathan's in. Nathan is into the pit lane. Dari's going to keep going. I think Dari has to keep going. I think he's just got to take the risk and hope it pays off, because if he pits now, he is behind Killer and Rick and close to potentially Luke, as he picks up a 3-second time penalty, which is not going to help. But I think Dari's just going to have to stay out and hope and pray that it plays into his favour and that he can hold on. But he always hit the wall. There's no grip at all on those hard compound tyres, and of course being on the hards is the worst slick tyre you can be on in these kind of conditions. Nathan Pitts, having to replace his front wing, still has a 3-second time penalty and is behind Rekurik. Where's Killer? Killer's gone behind Rekurik. Killer's broken his front wing. So Killer's made a mistake from having the lead of this race. Killer's made a mistake and broken his front wing, and now it's Rekurik potentially in the pound seat to win this race.
This race is completely turned on its head now. Rick is in the driver's seat to potentially take this win. The top 4 have got them 3-second time penalties. They're on slick tyres. Rick is looking so much faster on these intermediate tyres in comparison. 17 seconds is the gap. Ben goes wide out of turn 8, and Rick just slips down the inside, and that's all he has to do. There's a retirement. That is Bunty out of the exit of Sector 2 as well. So unfortunately for Bunty, that's him now out of this race. Ben, again, now slips another position behind Nathan, and now behind Killer as well, despite Killer having that wing damage. This is completely turned on its head. Nolan is now going to be overtaken by Rick as well, going down the inside in towards the hairpin. He's got another, 10 seconds left to do this in the space of one more lap. There is a high opportunity that Rick could actually win this race.
Yeah, Rick's got this in the bag. I'm on board with Dari, and he is so slow. He's got nothing. Rick's now past Creco as well, just powering around the outside with better traction, and he's up into second place. Dari's got no hope here. There is no way he is holding on to this. He's just going to stay out for another lap, I think, on these hards and just hope that he can even get a top 5 out of this race. But yeah, it's kind of fallen into Rekurik's lap, but he managed the hard compound tyres brilliantly, and his 2 rivals for this race to win in Nathan and Killer have both blown a golden opportunity to win this race with mistakes of their own. Look at Rick there, down the inside through the final corner. Dari is going to stay out for the final lap. He may as well. There's no point pitting now. Rekurik, though, into the lead. Nathan crashing into the wall, breaking or something, and getting a time penalty has cost him dearly.
He's done it again.
With his own mistake, has done it. Oh my word, what on earth has happened to this race? Luke's going to end up on the podium at this rate from absolutely nowhere, unless Larkin can pass Luke and end up on the podium. This has been such a bizarre race. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen an ending to a race like it, but onto the final lap, and Rekurik is, in the pound seat. What a race this has been. And from nowhere, Rick is going to win this race quite comfortably.
Not only that, Nathan didn't fix his wing either, so him and Killer both with wing damage. Nathan isn't going to be able to get up ahead of Killer by that 3 seconds. And I was saying that it's about 1.8 seconds in that gap, but he's just got to get a 1.2 within this lap. But with wing damage in the wet, it's not looking particularly likely that Nathan is going to get that 3-second gap. But I can't believe how much, again, this race has turned on its head. Marcio picks up the 5 second time penalty, but this, I can't believe it. I could not believe what has happened within this race. Dari is now going to be dropping down. Miami is now past Nolan and is looking to try and pass Creco. I'm lost for words, Aiden. I'm lost for words.
I'm completely baffled. I was just on board with Nathan whilst I was making noises in the background. Nathan is almost in the wall at every corner. He has got no grip at all. He's barely staying on the road and able to keep it pacing in the right direction. I think he's a little bit lucky in the sense that Luke and Larkin aren't actually closer, because he could be potentially off the podium, but he's going to cling on. But yeah, what a crazy end to this race. And out of all of this, first win of the season for Rekurik.
Absolutely insane. So what we thought was probably one of the worst strategy calls to one of the best strategy calls, it goes to the Ferrari. Rick comes across the line to take his first win in Division 2 for this season around the Singapore circuit. Nathan will finish second but jump down to third because of that time penalty to his name. And Luke finishes up ahead of Larkin in fifth. Miami will look like he will finish in sixth in the end. Dari, despite staying out on those hard tyres, he had to, of course, try and do that, but ends up dropping down into seventh. More Games does finish eighth, and I think he's not going to get jumped by Nolan, so Nolan will finish ninth. Creco will finish in 10th in the end. Evans in 11th, didn't manage, only just had finished behind Creco. The top three, what was it, Nathan, Dari and Creco, they ended up finishing 3rd, 7th and 10th in the end. The strategy which we thought was abysmal, it turned out to be the best one.
It really did. That completely caught us off guard. That was a wild end to that race. And yeah, I think just before it started raining, we were talking about this being a terrible call from Rekurik and Killer. But yeah, the rain coming down played beautifully into their favour, and the likes of Nathan and Darren and all that weren't quick enough to react to it themselves. So yeah, big mistakes from those drivers. I think Killer's going to be kicking himself as well, because without that mistake, without damaging his front wing, that was Killer's race win. And he's kind of blown it himself as well. He still gets a second place finish out of it. It's still a great result for Killer nonetheless. But that was with 3 laps to go, that was Killer's race in the bag. And a mistake from him that we didn't see has gifted it to Rekurik, and Rekurik quite comfortably as well. So yeah, topsy-turvy race. And we're seeing some of the front runners in the championship not have the best races. Creco way down the field in the end in that one, and having potentially his worst race of the season by his own standards, down there in 10th position. Luke obviously a bit further up, Killer a bit further up as well, but are we starting to see maybe some more people feature at the front? This is going to throw Rekurik a bit more in the ring when it comes to the championship now.
Oh no, it certainly will. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. That's I'm hoping he did make the perfect strategy call, which is, fair play to him. I don't want to say that was a fluke, because of course he did do very well in of course the championship last season, but I think for Rick, I don't know if he was even thinking that was going to happen. That mistake from Killer, and of course making that right strategy, him and Killer both was holding on with that, and they played that to perfection. Obviously, if they can keep doing that throughout the season, then yeah, of course, they've definitely got a high chance of more people being towards the top end of that. But yeah, Rick, again, I think played an absolute blinder with that. Fair play to you, my friend. Killer, again, fortunately ended up finishing in second for him. He was leading that entire time ahead of Rick, and then, yeah, those closing stages, just making that mistake that we didn't manage to catch. Nathan ended up finishing third, despite leading for the majority of the race. I don't think Nathan's going to be very happy with that one either. Luke ended up finishing up ahead of Larkin for fourth and fifth. Miami, from having that 5 grid place penalty, I'd want to say probably had the best race on those medium compound of tyres, because he ended up finishing sixth, despite, as I said, starting on the mediums, going to the hards, made them work, stuck in a train, and then ended up putting on those intermediates, and then just, again, just capitalising on when people didn't want to pit on those dry tyres. Dari, again, very unfortunate for his race, ended up finishing 7th. More Games in 8th. Again, from the back of the grid, fair play to you. Felipe in 9th. Creco 10th. Evans in 11th. And Ben taking the final points position in the end. RJ took the fastest lap in 13th. Marcio, Scream, Taupe, Bunty. And then, of course, our non-finishers as well, all at the back of the grid. So that is all she wrote for Division 2. That was... I'm still lost for words at those last 3 laps.
Yeah, I'm completely baffled as to what happened in that race. We said at the start of the race that Singapore was going to be one of those ones that's utterly chaotic or completely boring, and you've got to say for the first 85% of that race, it looked pretty boring. We kind of knew what the result was going to be, bar maybe a couple of people switching positions at the end. But yeah, it completely flipped on its head in those last 5 laps of that race. And yeah, what a crazy way to win that race. I think you've got to say though, I think you said it as well. I think Nathan probably going to be the most gutted out of all of them. He had that one comfortably hands down in the back. He was miles clear of the rest of the field, but didn't pit the right time for the intermediate tyres, and in those intermediate conditions on slick tyres, just made a crucial mistake, put it in the wall, and threw away a pretty easy victory, unfortunately.
Yeah, that I'm yeah, yeah. I don't think I could have said that better myself, to be honest with you. But yeah, yeah, I think those last 3 laps just they certainly put me off guard. I thought that was the easiest win that Nathan could have had in this division, and I think that would have been yeah, like you say, I think that was a Division 1 drive from him. Just unfortunate that that rain did end up coming. I think he was hoping that it wouldn't end up getting to actual to go into intermediates, but unfortunately it did, and
Mm.
it didn't. Again, it just didn't play in his favor. It played, as I said, massively in the favor of Rick and of Killer. just half of the lap way through, just absolutely slandering them, saying why they still haven't pit, and it turns out, yeah, you know what, that was the reason why they didn't end up pitting. So I suppose that's just completely proved our theories of that wrong. We'll just move Killer and Nathan into the Discord chat as well, so we can get the podium interviews straight underway. And we'll, of course, start off with our third place finisher, Mr. QVR Nathan. I don't think you're particularly happy with that result, considering how far in the lead you was throughout the entirety of the race. Was you thinking that it wasn't going to turn into intermediates at the end?
Yeah, obviously it was a bit of a tough call, but yeah, it was guess the wrong call that made.
It happens. Honestly, it was. We didn't even know it was going to rain until Lewis had said it about 6 laps from the end. So, yeah, I mean, again, it was like Monza. You had, I can't lie, you had a relatively boring race up until the rain had started chucking it down. I kind of have to talk about it. In those last couple of laps, was you hoping that you'd be able to try and stay out on those hard compound tires, sorry, and just hoping that it wouldn't chuck it down hard enough to the point where you'd still be able to stay out in front of them guys, or was you seeing, as soon as it came to like lap 30, I think it was you seeing that you knew it was going to be too late to the point where you had to make that pit stop ASAP?
Well, that 28 was fine, and you can kind of see on the asphalt how, I guess, much rain it is. And then lap 29, I put it in all, end of sector 2. I can't remember the corner number, but yeah, just went straight on, put it in the wall, lost half front wing. I was like, yeah, let's pit for Inters. And then obviously we saw with Krico and Dari and Felipe that the hards definitely wouldn't have made it to the end. I think by the time we'd reached the start of lap 31, I think Rick had already passed him. So it just showed how wet it got so quickly. But yeah, I think I was always going to pit in the end, but I was just kind of hoping that it wasn't going to be too quickly. But obviously, I guess just happy to come away with some decent points.
I was just about to ask that as well. Was it going to be the case that if you didn't break your front wing, was you going to stay out that entire time, or was there always that intention to pit, but it was just a bit too little, too late that you'd already broken your wing?
I think as soon as saw it was going straight on, I was like, yeah, this it's just not suitable for hards. Obviously I saw Rick and Killer pit the lap before because I guess also with the DRS just being disabled.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. I mean, I was 50-50, but as soon as I went straight on, I was like, yeah, we're not gonna actually finish the race. Because there was just no brakes. As soon as you touch the brakes, you're locking off and then going straight on, and obviously hit the wall. But yeah.
Yeah, no. Again, it's unfortunate for yourself. You've now finished second, first, and third as your last three races, so all steps on the podium, I suppose, is a bit of a consolation for that. But we go over to Britain next week. Again, are you hoping that? Well, first of all, are you hoping that you're not getting moved up into Division One because that drive was just absolutely ridiculous to start off with? And not only that, but are you also hoping to get at least if you're not moved up, at least a good points haul, or even try and take that top step again? Because again, you just looked ridiculous around here. I'd expect the same around Britain, but are you hoping for that?
Honestly, I'm not looking forward to the next two races. My next track that I'm actually looking forward to is Hungary. Britain and France. Obviously, we had France in evaluation. It was shocking. Britain, I've done a handful of laps, and it feels horrible this game. So yeah, we're just going for hopefully no rain, and then I guess just keep it on track and then see what we get from it.
No, of course, of course. Any questions for Nathan at all? Okay, I guess not. I suppose we'll move on over to our second place finisher then, Mr. QVR Killer. I would like to start off by apologising to both you and to Rick. We were both saying in the comments box that it was an abysmal strategy call, and it turned out to be the best one. Yeah, was there a little bit of a thing in the back of your mind to think that it may not get to intermediates towards the end, or was you always like confident in the back of your mind it's going to be in as I've just got to stay out as long as I can on these hard compound tyre?
I think Rick will agree with me that there were many, many times in that race where I thought I'd done the wrong thing and I thought I'd messed it up and it wasn't going to get wet enough. I remember there was a D1 race in Vietnam, the one LOE race at Vietnam, where we had a similar situation. It didn't get wet enough, and I ruined my race then. And then I had an opposite situation in Shanghai in D2 where I stayed out as Dowry and Crico did today, and lost out. So I had plenty of doubts, but I thought it was my best shot because it had got to the point where if I bail on the strategy now and pit for softs, I'm coming out behind Ben JS, who was nowhere near me in the first stint. So I thought, well, I'm stuck. I'm committed to this strategy now. I've just got to go for it. And I was very lucky that it paid off, but it could well have not done.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a high risk, high reward, and you definitely got the high reward for that. What happened in those last two laps? Because you was ahead of Rick.
I crashed coming out the last corner. I was very lucky I didn't DNF. But the end of the first lap on Inters, I just dropped out the last corner, hit the wall, got orange wing, and I did the last laps with orange wing. Luckily, Luke and Larkin were far enough behind me they didn't catch. And luckily, Nathan had damage. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got Nathan on pens. Because that was why Rick just walked away from us, because I had damage as well. Otherwise, I think I would have at least been all over the back of Nathan. But I was so lucky that he had damage as well. Otherwise, I would have got that. But mainly, I was just lucky to stay in the race because, that was a very, very fortunate escape. I completely binned it.
Yeah, no, I get that as well. It didn't look like it as if Nathan fixed his wing either when he made his pit in for the intermediates. I suppose it was a bit of a smarter one to do as well because there was a massive gap that was behind anyway. So I suppose that paid dividends for the both of you as well. One other thing I was just going to ask about this race as well. You know, you and Rick you both opted to start on those hard tyres. And again, obviously, you went all the way to the intermediates as well. Was there any sort of doubt that it wasn't actually ever going to work, and the fact that you would have put slicks on at the end anyway? You would have ended up sort of down in. I think I want to say you would have been behind Nolan and Ben. Was it going to be the case that, or was there ever any intention that you was going to pit for a set of the slick tyres, or was it always focused on the intermediates and that you was just going to make sure that those were the tyres that you were putting on?
Yes, there was one moment around like lap 17, lap 18, where I was thinking about coming in for mediums because the Jeff kept saying 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. It wasn't changing, so I thought, should I just bail on this and commit for mediums? And then I had another moment, like I said to myself, right, if it gets to lap 24 and it's still dry, I won't lose out at the end of the race by going on to softs. So I was like, could I go for softs? And then I was multiple laps. I'd brought my MFD up to make sure it was on softs, and twice I was going to come in and bailed on it. And I thought, no, I'm committed now, because if I'd pitted, I would have come out behind Luke and Nolan, as you say. And my whole mindset was, I wasn't like looking at Rick, I wasn't looking at Kriko, I wasn't looking at Darry or Nathan. My whole thing in that race was I was looking at the gap to Nolan, to Luke, to Ben JS, to Larkin. I was looking at that group and thinking, well, if I pit onto a set of slicks earlier in the race, I get stuck behind them. They pit for inters. I have to pit for inters as well. I've lost out because I've got stuck behind them. Yeah. So I was like, I'm staying out for as long as Luke and Larkin and Nolan stay out. And that was my whole game plan, basically.
Yeah, no, of course. And you're now our championship leader. I want to say by about... I'm going to say about... Yeah, I was about to say, it's a very small margin, with Luke also jumping up ahead of Kriko as well. With Britain being next week, are you hoping to try and get onto that top step and not make that mistake in the last 2 laps again?
I'm hopeful, but Britain's an easy track, and it's one everyone's good at, one everyone likes. So I think I'll be up there. I wasn't expecting to be up there today. I wasn't expecting to be up there by Miami, so I can't play that line anymore, because if I doubt myself, then I just get proved wrong on Saturday. So I'll say that I'll try and fight for the win, but you never know, because as I said, it's a track everyone's good at, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly. But at the same time, if you expect less, you won't exactly be disappointed. Aidan, I'm hoping, is your mic fixed? Have you got any questions for Killer?
Hopefully you can hear me. Fingers crossed. Yeah, there we go. Unfortunately, I do not, actually. I was just going to ask about Silverstone and what the plans are for Silverstone. So I was going to ask the same to Nathan as well, actually. So yeah, I don't unfortunately have anything to ask. So get my mic working. I don't have much to add. But yeah, congratulations on the podium.
Thank you.
And of course, we now move on to our race winner, Rick. I think this is probably going to be the second ever time that I've actually spoken to you via voice chat. But taking the win, I'm going to say you wasn't expecting that to happen tonight, was you?
For sure not. By the way, can you hear my voice?
Yeah, we can hear it fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the win, for sure not. I noticed early on in the race, I definitely didn't have pace to be there. I was losing to Killer. I think I was maintaining like 2.5 seconds the gap, and I thought, okay, P5 is the best I can do. And then suddenly I started to catch him. I think maybe he started to save his tires. I was trying to save early on because we were going long, but I never thought I would win, especially when Nathan passed us again.
Yeah, no, it did. It did look very sort of intense when that all went down. I'll ask the same thing as what I did to Killer. Was it always that intention that you was going to go on a set of the intermediate tires at the end, or was there something that was playing in the back of your mind that you think that you may have had to go for slicks for the end of that race?
Yeah, pretty much the same answer as Jake had. I had 2 options on the start because I saw the heavy. It was immediately heavy rain on the last portion of the weather forecast, so I knew it was gonna come fast, but right at the end. So it was 2 options: either go all the way to the end, or if there's safety cars, go all the way to the end. But otherwise, I was supposed to pit on lap 14 for mediums and go until rain. But then I saw Luke, Larkin, Ben, and Nolan, I think. They weren't pitting, so I was thinking the same thing as Jake. Like I got to commit to that because we had such a healthy gap and just try and risk it, and it paid off.
Yeah, no, it certainly paid off. As I said, me and Aidan were thinking that it was a very bad strategy, and again, it definitely paid off for the both of you. Again, I know you wasn't expecting to take that win tonight, and I applaud you for that impressive drive. I want to know, what was your reaction when you'd seen Jake hit that wall out of the last corner? Was you thinking that this race is definitely yours now, or was there still that little bit of doubt that you wouldn't be able to catch up to the dry runners?
I was just in the moment. I was just like, okay, fine, good. I don't have to pass him, do anything dirty. But then I saw so many didn't pit, and I was so certain that I'm not gonna catch them, but they were super slow. The rain came so fast, and I was surprised to see Nathan. I passed him when he was exiting the pits. I guess he had damage or something, fixed his wing or something. But after I passed Nathan, I thought, okay, there's a chance. But that it was so far, I didn't really think yet until I actually passed him.
Yeah, no, and again, I saw that it was the case that it wasn't going to be an easy one for you, especially towards that end part there as well. But I mean, it paid off in the end for you, players. So fair play for that one. Britain next week, of course. Notorious track for Division 2, and if I'm not mistaken, one that you do quite enjoy. Is it one that you're hoping again to try and get back on the top step of this podium?
I don't think so. If Nathan
That's
is in the div, or Kriko or Jake, I don't have the pace to qualify right at the front normally. So I have a good race pace, but I need to fix my qualifying if I want to be up there. Just having fun and racing and seeing what results are there for me. But yeah, actually, Silverstone, I tend to do well. I think I won there once, but I really don't like. I think I'm in the minority there. I don't really like the track.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fair enough. I suppose everyone, of course, has their own opinions on the track, but I know, as I said, it is one that you do tend to do a bit better on, usually around there. So we'll wait and see, of course, for that next week. Aidan, any questions for our race winner for tonight?
Firstly, apologising for thinking that you were on a terrible strategy. Please don't go and watch back anything me and Jake said lap 26 onwards. But other than that, I guess looking forward for the rest of the championship. Of course, you mentioned you don't think you quite have the quali speed yet to fight right at the front. But I think today proves obviously that it's not always about where you qualify; it's about where you finish. Do you think you could potentially start to look towards a championship run, or do you think it's still too early to say?
Too early for sure, but I was talking with YHYY before the season started. I was looking at the calendar and I was saying to him, like, Singapore is where my season starts because the first five tracks, obviously Miami I didn't know, but the other four, I thought that I will not do well. I had one podium and a couple of good points finishes, so I'm expecting the rest of the season to go well, but you never know. It's too early, I think.
Yeah, a little bit too early. You say your season starts now. What track are you looking at next to be like your next win then, if it's not going to be Silverstone?
France, I might miss. Hungary, it's a pad track. I don't know what's after that. Australia, maybe. I like Australia.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, we have to put some betting on it then. But yeah, congratulations on your win today.
Thank you.
And that's what she wrote, as I said, for Singapore for round number 6. Make sure you guys are tuning in, of course, to the streams for next week, 6:30 p.m. British Standard Time for Division 1 and Division 3, covered by James Head and Mr. QVR Killer for Division 1 and Division 3, covered by JessGamer95 and Evil Dragon. And then 8:10 p.m. British Standard Time for Division 2 and Division 4. Division 4 being covered by, hopefully, Paco and Maverick for next week. And you said to me before the stream started, Aidan, this is your final one for Division 2.
It is, yeah. My final one for the season, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm still going to be tuning in, of course, to Division 2 streams just to see what's going on and how the championship's going to be. So I'm excited to see how it plays out. But yeah, for the rest of the season, at least, I won't be in the commentary booth.
It's sad to see you go from it, indeed, my friend. And of course, thank you for the past few races that you have done, of course, as well as, of course, throughout the other seasons as well. Hopefully, we do see you back for next season, or at least throughout maybe in this season if you do decide to come back. But it will probably be myself and QVR Verstappen now for Division 2 for next week as well. So make sure you guys are tuning into that one instead of 8:10 p.m. British Standard Time. Thank you to everybody that has tuned in for tonight, and we'll catch you guys next week, as I said, for round number 7 around the Silverstone circuit.